Look, if you're coming into the city, there's a chance you're not coming in to buy a house because there's not a whole lot of them being built anywhere right now. We're joined now by Develle Morrison with Bosley Real Estate Limited. Develle, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, Develle, were you just at a conference?
Oh, yes, I did. I went to a middle housing, a middle housing summit this weekend. Sorry, not this weekend, but on Thursday. It was very interesting.
Talk to me about that. So you were talking about, for our listeners who don't know what that is, what are these what's middle housing?
Well, so essentially it's trying to have, 4 plexes, 6 plexes, 5 plexes in areas that have typically just been single family housing. That's the idea, because we're just trying to bulk up the amount of density that we have in our city so that we can house more people.
And is there a level of NIMBYism that is preventing that from happening?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there are stories from developers that, they're trying to build a triplex, next door to a single family dwelling, and they get a ton of pushback from the neighbors. And this triplex is, beautifully built. In fact, it's not, quote unquote, affordable housing because the renters are paying, between like $2,000 and $4,000 a month. So it really is a level of NIMBYism in the city that is a little bit troubling if we're ever going to get to the density requirements that we need to have.
Well, if anyone knows anything about you, you are a woman with very strong opinions and you're not a shrinking violet. But did you learn anything at this conference that you didn't know before?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things they were talking about is the development charges, actually. So the development charges, and we talk about them a lot in terms of it being a bit of a blocker for for developers to build more, simply because of all the amount of money that they've got to give the government. So, one of the things that's interesting is that if you build up to if you were building a triplex, you would be charged the same way a developer would be charged. So it's been pretty much a disincentive to create more housing. So now what they've done is they've forgiven the development charges on up to 4 units. So you can create 4 units on a site, and you don't have to pay any development charges for that. Now the challenge becomes the second you add in a 5th unit. So let's say you've got a house, you've put 4 units in it, and then now you're like, hey, you know what? Let me put in a garden suite or a laneway house. That 5th unit all of a sudden triggers all of the development charges on all 5 units that you didn't pay before.
Really?
That's something that's it's a bit of a sticking point, right? So again, it's what it's saying to somebody is, I'm disincented to create 5 units, and we know we need more units.
Yeah.
Why don't I just stick to 4?
And this idea of adding this density in the city, are we looking to do that everywhere? Or are there certain areas of the city that are being targeted?
Well, actually, so let's back up. So, the Middle Housing Summit, we talked about that kind of stuff, but we also talked about the Major Street Study. So the Major Street Study is where essentially they're saying that people can build up to 6 stories on major streets. And before, council was told they could do 30 units, but council recently approved this Thursday that now people could build up to 60 units. And so to your question about, where is that? You look at major streets, and they seem to have approved some streets, but not other streets, which is weird to me.
Well,
for example,
I've been watching the development on Yonge Street, and Yonge Street's going to be high rises on either side all the way up to North York.
Which makes sense. Yep. It's Yonge Street, but there's lots of streets in the city. So if I look at the Danforth, I think, just like Yonge Street, the Danforth should have high rises. There's subway access. It's close to lots of stores, etc. The Danforth should be one of those areas where you've got higher density. But this Major Street Study, oddly enough, Danforth isn't on the list. Streets like Girard aren't on the list. Is
it city councilors that are sort of protecting their turf?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure whether that is city staff coming up with that major streets list. I think it might be city staff. I'm not sure if it's councilors. What's interesting about that council vote to increase the number of units from 60 to 30 is it was actually approved 21-3. So 21 councilors were in support of having the number of units go up to 60 versus 30. And, the ones that weren't, obviously, we go back to that NIMBY conversation again,
Yeah.
where people are like, oh, what's going to happen to my neighborhood? But if we look at a neighborhood like, let's say the Annex, right? So the Annex has lots of mixed use housing in there. You've got people with big mansions. You've got, well, forget about the frat houses, but, you do have, big buildings that have apartments in them, and everybody seems to get together fine, again, except for the frat houses that throw parties. But, and it's still a beautiful neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I think that people need to remember that we can actually all live together and it's going to be okay.
I very much love this conversation, and I hope we can pick it up again when the ball moves down the field a little more. But it feels to me like that's the direction we have to go in the city, and people better get with the program. And if you live on a subway line, you have the convenience of that, which means, guess what? You're going to have to live with a lot more people around you, because that's what we want.
Yes, absolutely.
DeVell Morrison from Bosley Real Estate, thank you so much. Enjoy your Saturday. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.